ইন্ডিপেন্ডেন্ট টেলিভিশনের বিশেষ সাক্ষাৎকার অনুষ্ঠানে সবাইকে স্বাগত। আমাদের সাথে আজকে আছেন একজন বিশেষ অতিথি। তিনি যুক্তরাষ্ট্রের দক্ষিণ ও মধ্য এশিয়া বিষয়ক সহকারী পররাষ্ট্রমন্ত্রী টোনা লো। ওয়েলকাম মিস্টার অ্যাসিস্ট্যান্ট সেক্রেটারি টোনা লো।
Thank you, Nafisa. It's a real honor to be on your show today.
And শুভ সন্ধ্যা also.
Oh, thank you.
We want to start our interview with a hard questions, and it is
You have only hard questions I see today, so.
And it is also popular in our Bangladesh.
Please, yes.
Would you provide an update on the progress of lifting sanction on RAB? Bangladesh claims to be actively addressing extrajudicial killings. What is the United States assessment of those claims?
Thank you. So the sanctions against RAB remain in place. I was here a year ago, and at that time we talked about the statement that Human Rights Watch had made about the RAB. Human Rights Watch said last year the RAB had dramatically reduced the numbers of extrajudicial killings and enforced disappearances. That's great. It's really good progress. Having said that, we still have concerns. We see that other branches of the law enforcement community are still committing some of these crimes. We also are waiting to see if there's going to be accountability for past crimes that the RAB may have committed. So these are important pieces. I know the government of Bangladesh is impatient about the process. We have a process in place. What it strikes me as is that last year it was noted that the numbers went down dramatically of killings and disappearances. To me it says the RAB can conduct its important counterterrorism mission and law enforcement mission without these human rights abuses. And for that, I hope Bangladeshi people are also happy.
So is there any good news?
There is only the news that we are in a process of talking about this with the government. I have one other thing to add, which is we also remember the case of Sultana Jasmine last year. And so we've been talking to the government that we can see Bangladeshi people are waiting for justice in that case. We as a partner of Bangladesh are also waiting.
So now we want to ask you, what is the current status of negotiation for purchase of 20 Boeing aircraft from the United States?
So I would say, one, that we're very proud to have had a long relationship with Biman Airlines and Boeing, the Boeing Corporation. Biman's whole fleet right now are Boeing. And there's competition now for the next purchases of airplanes. The details of that, Boeing and Biman can tell you, but we're excited to compete. We hope that Biman carefully reviews the proposals from Boeing and other competitors, and we hope the best proposal will win.
Can you provide detailed update on the proposed defense agreements between the US and Bangladesh, specifically GSOMIA and the AXA agreements?
These are very technical questions. So GSOMIA is an agreement we have with many governments around the world that allow us to share sensitive military information. And it says we're going to protect your information and you'll protect our information. So for example, if you want to buy some piece of equipment from the United States with complicated electronics and sensors and radars, you need a GSOMIA. That's what that is. So we have begun discussions about this, but these discussions in most countries take quite a while. AXA is a very complicated military agreement that allows us to provide services to our services to the Bangladeshi military, and we can and they can provide services to our military. We're actually not talking about that kind of agreement yet.
There have been complaints from various countries, including Bangladesh, regarding the human rights situation in the United States. How does the US administration respond to such concerns, particularly in light of its own human rights reporting on other nations?
So let me say, as an American, we Americans should be humble. We have human rights problems in our country. And it is true, we point out human rights problems when we see them in Bangladesh, and we expect Bangladesh as a partner of ours, if they see problems, they should point it out to us. I have two children, both are in university now, And I hear a lot of complaints from my kids about what's going on in the United States. Let me say, from my perspective in government, we have thousands of demonstrations that have happened in my country in the last few weeks about the situation in Israel and Gaza. Almost all of those demonstrations have been peaceful and have been allowed to go on normally, and we have respected freedom of assembly, freedom of speech. There are a few that have resulted in violence, vandalism, and hate speech. As our presidents have said, there's no space for hate speech in America. In those cases, police have been involved, and sometimes people have been arrested. Now, I know some Americans and some Bangladeshis have questioned whether the police have responded always to violence, or maybe they over-responded. In places where there are accusations of police over-response, there is an investigation. And if police are found to have acted with more force than necessary, people will be held accountable. That's what happens in a democracy, and we appreciate that our Bangladeshi friends remind us of our obligations.
Okay, thank you. BNP, an opposition party in Bangladesh, you know BNP?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. They claim that the United States has softened in its stance on the 12th parliamentary election influenced by Indian mediation. What is your take on those claims made by BNP leaders?
So that's ridiculous. We are a big country. We pursue our interests around the world. Nobody tells the United States what to do. We don't tell Bangladesh what to do. This idea that somehow we have acted in a way because other countries have told us, honestly, could not be further from the truth. We are very committed to supporting the will of the Bangladeshi people to have free and fair elections, to have nonviolent elections. And last year, we took several steps to encourage that. We ended up sanctioning police, members of the opposition, and members of the ruling party who were engaged in violence or voter suppression. We also spoke in favor of meaningful dialogue between the BNP and the Awami League. We spoke out in favor of freedom of speech and freedom of assembly. That's normal. We do that around this region, and we will continue to uphold those values in Bangladesh.
Post-election, both countries are shifting focus towards enhancing ties and increasing engagement in various sectors such as trade, climate change, and security. Has the US chosen to set aside governance and human rights issue as source of bilateral tensions?
So we have some very difficult issues in our relationship. It's no secret that last year, a lot of tension over the elections issues. In addition, we're working on RAB sanctions together. We're talking about a whole range of human rights issues. We are talking about improvements to the business environment. And these are complex things. Labor rights, for example. We have a long history of working on those issues together. We make slow progress, and it takes time. What I've said to the government is, let us also, in addition to the difficult issues, let's find some new areas of cooperation. Let's try to find a positive agenda, because my belief is if we can do some positive things, like increase the number of students going back and forth between our countries, increasing investment and trade, finding ways to work on clean energy so that Bangladesh can improve its environment and fuel the economic growth. If we can do these things, I think it'll make the hard issues easier to solve.
There's a prevalent belief in Bangladesh what Washington views Dhaka's action through the lens of Delhi's interest. Recent claim by a former Indian diplomat support these notions and suggesting that the US refrained from exerting pressure on Bangladesh due to India's influence. What is your perspective on this?
America views its interests in Bangladesh through a lens of America's interests. We don't look at it through a lens of China's interests or India's interests or Russia's interests. We have important interests here, and we have direct discussions with our Bangladeshi friends, And I think those are productive and useful discussions. Now, I will say it's true that America and India are talking. We're talking all of the time. And we're talking about things that happen in the region, in Sri Lanka, in Maldives, in Nepal, and sometimes in Bangladesh. And what I would say is sometimes America influences Indian policy.
Okay.
And sometimes India influences American policy. That's what we call diplomacy. We're doing that with countries all throughout this region. It's perfectly normal, but we look at our interests through American values and American priorities.
You're talking about the China, so there is one question about the China. In recent years, the influence of China is growing around the world, including South Asia. The recent election of Maldives reflects such as phenomena. After signing the deal with Belt and Road Initiative (BRI), China now is eager to sign the Global Development Initiative (GDI) and Global Security Initiative (GSI) with Bangladesh. How does the U.S. assist growing Chinese influence in this region?
So we always tell our partners, we do not ask you to choose. We want you to have positive relations with all the countries that you interact with, including China. But we also want you to have normal relations, relations not defined by coercion or pressure or unusual debt conditions. Where we can see that people have good relations and normal relations with China is when other countries compete. So I was a U.S. ambassador in the Kyrgyz Republic. Nobody was competing for investments there. Only China was investing in the Kyrgyz Republic. And they did some very bad projects, huge, expensive projects that went nowhere and did not provide benefit to the Kyrgyz people. In Kazakhstan next door, Western countries, Japan, South Korea, Australia, the United States, all of us were competing. The number one investor in Kazakhstan is Holland. Number two is the United States. China is number 8. And when China is number 8, China competes normally. It has normal loans. It has normal Kazakh people working in their companies, not bringing Chinese labor. All I'm trying to say is we want China to be a good partner of Bangladesh. For that to happen, we need to offer competition for investment, competition for defense equipment, competition for ideas, for education. The United States would like to compete.
During your recent engagement with the government of Bangladesh representatives, you discussed shared priorities. Would you please share your views on those discussions and how you envision the next stage of bilateral relation between Bangladesh and the United States?
So I have said the purpose of the trip of our delegation this week to Bangladesh is to try to rebuild trust. After a pretty difficult year between the United States and Bangladesh, having largely to do with the elections, we want to show that we are ready to look forward and not look back, to define a relationship where we have tough issues to deal with. We're serious about that. We are not giving up on human rights or anti-corruption or any of the important issues we talk about, but we also have to have balance. We have to have positive things that we're doing together. And so I spoke to the foreign minister today about many ideas we have about positive initiatives that we can create to improve the lives of Bangladeshi people and American people. And they have provided a whole list of ideas of things that they think we can do together. This is great cooperation. It makes me very hopeful for the future. And we are going to get to work and move forward on these ideas.
For the last 50 or 100 years?
Even more.
Okay.
You know, we had a wonderful discussion with the Minister of Environment. There's so much we can do between our two countries to improve the environment of Bangladesh, the environment of the United States. We have things to learn from how you manage your coastal waters, how you're managing the extreme heat in this country, how you're managing the forests. The same, we would like to be helpful here. We would like to bring American technology, American capacity to help you with some of these incredible struggles.
How does the United States evaluate the situation in Rakhine and Cox's Bazar, given the ongoing conflict between the Myanmar military and resistance forces, particularly concerning are the heightened risk of human trafficking, drug peddling, and the exploration by terrorists, impact Rohingya repatriation and regional peace and security?
Well, let me first say, I had an opportunity to travel to the refugee camp in Cox's Bazar last year. And I was really moved by the experience. It's the largest refugee camp in the world. I'm partly moved by the generosity and compassion of the Bangladeshi people. You have welcomed 1 million people into your country. It's a burden for Bangladeshi people. We want to share that burden. The United States is the largest single donor, providing assistance to not only the refugees, we also provide assistance to the Bangladeshi families who live near to the refugees. We make a commitment to continue that assistance and to increase that assistance to make sure that all of the people of this region, refugees as well as Bangladeshi families, are able to live a normal, healthy, and safe life. We are a little concerned that other donors are not contributing enough money. So we talked to the foreign minister today and the foreign secretary about how we can work together, Bangladeshi government, US government, to try to go to other places around the world and ask them to contribute to this important effort. I am worried. I can see the violence in Rakhine State. I can see the pretty terrible conditions that exist now in Myanmar. I, for one, believe it will be very difficult today for people to go back safely. The UN and all of us who are part of the UN family are trying very hard to create the conditions for the safe return of refugees. Until then, we are asking Bangladesh to be patient, to continue to support this very vulnerable population. We had great discussion today about how we can improve the lives of refugees by providing some ability for them to make money to support themselves inside the camp, services for other refugees or handicrafts or something to help them. We also talked about the tents that they live in. How can we make them safer and more durable for the monsoon season? I see the commitment of government, the commitment of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to support of these refugees. We are grateful to her and to the Bangladeshi people every day for what they do for refugees.
Last day you eat fuchka.
Yes.
How's the taste?
It was my first time having fuchka, and it was delicious. I have such respect for Ambassador Haas, who is learning how to be a fuchka chef, but really for the celebrity chef who helped to train us. We were not very good students, but we are trying our best. I've told Ambassador Haas, when we both retire, he and I are going to open a fuchka stand in New York and sell fuchka on the street.
This is your 6th time in Bangladesh.
It's a lot of trips to Bangladesh, yes. I really enjoy it here. People have been very kind to me. We have excellent discussions with government, with civil society, with the business community, and with journalists.
What is the most beautiful things you like in Bangladesh?
Well, I love the spirit of Bangladeshi people. When you drive down the street or walk down the street, you see people really have embraced the life that they have here. There's a spirit of joy, there's color in the way people dress, and color in the buildings and in the stands that are selling fruit and vegetables. You don't see that everywhere. A lot of the rest of the world looks quite boring. You have a lot of cement, a lot of gray. You just have colors everywhere in this country.
In future 50 years later, where do you want to see Bangladesh?
Well, I am very optimistic that children being born today, when they reach my advanced age in 50 years or so, that they'll find that this is a very prosperous place where everyone lives in respect of one another, but also they can have the economic prosperity that allows them to provide a great education for their children, that they provide security for themselves, but also the countries in the neighborhood, that they provide trade that helps to create wealth in Bangladesh, but also in other countries, including my own country. And I hope it's a place where people continue to live in peace, they have democracy, they have freedom of speech, and they are able to determine their own leaders, and those leaders have the wisdom to lead with courage into the future.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. I really enjoyed our time.
Thank you
It's
for
been an
this
honor.
interview.
Thank you.